Um, Here we are talking about Bhishma Dev, who is a Mahajan, who's confirming the identity of Krishna. But we'll also see some of the things that Lord Krishna says about himself in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So we'll go through these slides one by one. So I'm just going to zoom in to a specific section. So let's see. Here we have Bhishma Dev confirming that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, which is the first Narayan. We also should see that, and we all know that all acharyas have also accepted it. And here, one of the good points that is made is that you will only recognize the Lord if the Lord is showering mercy upon you. So let's see some of the forms. And this is, I cannot zoom in more than this, but I think this is readable, right? Can you read these small boxes? But I'm anyway going to read this. So let's look at the various forms of the Lord. And here the Lord was presented as the original Narayan. So let's quickly go through and see how Lord Krishna expands himself. A bit of a tree that talks about who Lord Krishna is. So Krishna is on the top, if you see. This is the same Krishna who expands into 10,000 billion forms in the Ras Leela. And he is the same Krishna who also expands as 16,108 forms in the various palaces that are there in the Dwarka. So he's the original Krishna who does this expansion. Now, the first form, as mentioned in this verse, is that Krishna expands as Balram first. From Balaram, then there are four forms which come out, which is Vasudev, Shankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from Shankarshan, then comes the Narayan. So this is the Narayan form that we are talking about. And from that Narayan, again, you have Vasudev again expanding, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So again, these four forms come from Narayan. These are the four forms again coming out. And from the Shankarshana form, then we have all the three Vishnus that come out. One is a Mahavishnu. You all know that he is responsible for emanating all the universes from his pores. So he is the first form of the Vishnu, which is Mahavishnu. From that also comes is a Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. That's the second form of the Lord. And then from that comes is this Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So these are the three forms of the Vishnu that comes from the Sankarshana form. Then you will see that the Lord then expands himself into various avatars that are mentioned. So let's see a few of them. One of them is a Leela avatar, another is Guna avatar. Then you have Avesh avatar. This is a special empowerment given to a few of them. Then you have a Yuga avatar, and we have the Manvantara avatar. Quickly, let's go through them. Leela avatar is also the avatar where Shri Krishna himself descends and does the Leela. There are other 12 Leela avatars that are mentioned that you see on the screen. So these are specific avatars of the Lord. They do specific Leelas for the conditioned souls. These are those Leela avatars. Then also there are specific Guna avatars that we talk about. So Vishnu again coming here as in the form of mode of goodness. He does the maintenance. Then the Guna avatar also expands as Brahma, which is in the mode of passion. He does the creation. And then Shiv comes also in the form of Guna avatar, who is responsible for destruction, but he is in the form of ignorance. If you look at the Avesh avatar, which is specific empowerment given, it's divided into two very specific. One is a Bhagavat avatar, and one is called a Shakti Avesh avatar. Bhagavat avatars are typically Kapil and Rishabdev, and then Shakti Avesh avatar typically is all again appearing Narad Muni, whose primary responsibilities is bhakti. Then Brahma comes for creation. Then you have four Kumaras who are who are coming in, who are responsible for the knowledge. Then you have Anantadev, Parshuram, Buddha. Sorry, I misspelled it. And then we also have our Srila Prabhupada. So these are specific Avesh avatars of the Lord, where the Lord gives them a specific empowerment to do that particular job. So this is Avesh avatar. If you look at the Guna avatars, there are 4 yugas. So the Yuga avatar, sorry, not the Guna avatar, the Yuga avatar. The Yuga avatar are again 4. It is Satya Yuga. The deity for the Satya Yuga was called Hamsa. And the primary, or I would say the way to achieve was through the meditation. That means the only way to achieve the Lord was through the meditation, and the color of that was white. Then you have a Treta Yuga, where the deity is Yagna, and people used to do fire sacrifices to achieve the supreme personality, and the color was red. And then you have Dwapar Yuga, where the deity is Krishna, and people used to do deity worship to achieve the personality of Godhead, and then the color was black in this case. And then you have finally the Kali Yuga, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared, and the form of achieving the personality is Nam Sankirtan, and the color is golden. And you have 14 mantra avatars also. So if you look at this full tree, this is what Bhishma Dev is confirming, that he is the original Narayan. And you can see from all the expansions, you understand now how Krishna expands or appears himself into various forms. All this has been confirmed by the various sources that you see. So the full tree that we talked about is all mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vaivarta Puran, Laghu Bhagavatamrita, and Brahma Samhita. So this talks about the position of Lord Krishna. Where does he stand? And when you talk about the original Narayan, this is what is his expansion. We also should understand with now this tree that we are talking about, that what makes Krishna so unique. Okay. And if you look at it, we will see some of the things that are only existing with Lord Krishna. No one else exhibit this. So let's look at some of the things that that I'm showing you on the screen. So first thing is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna has total of 64 qualities. And these qualities are very nicely documented by Sri Rupa Goswami, which says that Krishna has 64 qualities. And we need to understand that the 64 qualities that we're talking about is 100% of what we are talking about. So if I talk of a quality, it is 100% available with the Lord. When it comes to Vishnu, we see that out of this 64 quality that Krishna possesses, Vishnu has only 60 qualities, and that too in 93%. So not in even 100% capacity. So Vishnu has, out of the 64 qualities, 60, and in 93 as a percentage. When you go to Shivji has 55 qualities in total out of the 64, again 85 in percentage. Brahma has 50 qualities and 78 in percentage. And the living entities, we also do have 50 qualities, and we can even reach that 78%. So we still have lesser. It's not that we are at 78. The purest living entity can attain the position of Brahma. But here it is said that you also have 50 qualities as living entities, and that also is partial, which is 78%. So if you look at the full hierarchy, it is just confirmed that he is the original Narayan. This is how he expands. And then we have all these qualities that makes Lord Krishna or Sri Krishna very distinct from the others, and confirmed by all these sources. Okay, this is going to come out from this presentation. Let's go to the next slide. I've just put few of the things that are specified in Bhagavad Gita, and let's see what does Krishna say about himself. And I'm just going to read some of them, not to read all of them, but yeah, we will just go through few of the highlighted ones and let's see that yes, Bhishma Dev confirmed, but here Krishna is also confirming what is his position. So some of the verses that talks about is the translation says that um, here it says that I am the sacrifice, the offering of the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. So it's talking about this. In some of the verses, it says, I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the mother of the support and the grandsire. I am the object of the knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, Sam, and the Yajurveda. Next verses, Krishna says, the material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is being created, annihilated again and again. Then in some of the verses, he says, know that all the opulent, beautiful, glorious creation spring from but a spark of my splendor. Sorry. And then here it says, with a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support the entire universe. Here it says that all the living beings are but part and parcel of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. And then in some of the verses, he says, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all the sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and the well-wisher of all the living entities. He says, I am both the origin and the dissolution. Then he says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. And here it says, I am celebrated both in this world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person. They are not all the verses, but it just says Krishna is telling his position, and this shows us that Krishna is really the personality, and he's actually revealing us that this is my position. Let's look at some of the verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. Here also there are very good examples that Krishna himself is talking about. He says, before the creation of the cosmic manifestation, I alone existed with my specific spiritual potencies. Then he says, I am the reservoir of unlimited, sorry, let me just put this up. Okay, I can't read that. Therefore, I am known as unlimited or all-pervading. Then he speaks to Brahma saying that I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Then he also says that I alone exist before the creation of this universe, and after the destruction, he would still be there. Then here it says that all living entities, again, moving and non-moving, are my expansions and are separate from me. I am the super soul in all living beings. We'll talk about the super soul in the coming verses. I am the form of the transcendental vibrations like Omkar, Hare Krishna, Rama, and I am the supreme absolute truth. Okay. Then he says that I am the cause, the protector, and the Lord of all mystic perfections, of the yoga systems, of analytic knowledge, of the pure activity, and the community of the learned Vedic teachers. So this is the position of the Krishna. Krishna himself is revealing, saying that this is what I am. So Bhishma Dev confirms, and here Krishna himself is revealing that this is what my position is. Now let's look at some of the potencies of the Lord. That shloka also talked about certain energies and also talked about certain bewilderment of the jiva between these energies. So let's try and find out what is exactly happening with the energies of the Lord. So Krishna has three energies: internal, marginal, and external. That all is Krishna's part. And we will now specifically look at the potencies and see the features and the characteristics of these potencies. And we will see how Jiva is bewildered when he looks between an internal and an external potency. So first thing is the internal potency of the Lord, when it transforms, it transforms into something called a Chit Shakti, or a spiritual world. So the spiritual world, if you talk about spiritual world, so when I say spiritual world, it is everything to do with bhakti, including bhakti. His potency is a transformation, which is a spiritual world. If you look at the quantitative part of the internal potency, it is 3/4 of the entire creation. That means the internal potency, or the chit world, or the chit jagat, is 3/4 of the entire creation. If you look at the qualitative part of the spiritual world, or chit shakti, it is sat chit anand. It is eternal, it is full of knowledge and bliss. So that's the characteristics of the chit shakti. When the marginal potency gets transformed, what we get is the jivas, which is us. That's the marginal potency. And when the external potency expands or gets transformed, what we get is the Maya Shakti, of the material world. And if you look at the quantitative analysis, the material world is only and only 1/4 of the entire creation. So the spiritual world is 3/4, and we are just into that 1/4 of the entire creation. And if we look at the qualitative part of the external potency, it is asat, achit, niranand, temporary, full of ignorance and full of miseries. And this is where the jiva shakti is struggling. Okay, and we will see some more details now, that he is struggling between the internal potency and the marginal potency. The shloka says that yes, he can see that Lord expands himself through his internal potencies into various incarnations, which we just saw. And then he also sees that the same person who incarnates into all the spiritual forms is also with us as a normal human being. And he's bewildered now between the internal potency and the external potencies. And Prabhupada says this is happening because of two things. One is specifically Yogmaya and Mahamaya. So let's look at some of the things that we talk about Yogmaya and what is Yogmaya here. Prabhupada says Yogmaya means the mercy of the Supreme Lord, which connects a devotee in the transcendental service of the Lord. So the more we get attached to the service of the Lord, we will know him more. He says Yogmaya is the original potency, which is part of the internal potency. And Prabhupada says this is Radharani. And then Prabhupada also says, when you are being gradually advanced in Krishna consciousness, that is the action of a Yogmaya. So here Prabhupada says that Yogmaya is an internal potency. And if you understand the Lord correctly, and if you are getting gradually advanced into Krishna consciousness, knowing more about Krishna, that means Yogmaya is acting. But then if you look at the Mahamaya means that this is the external potency of the Lord, which actually puts the conditioned soul into illusion. And this is where that Jiva is struggling between the internal and the external, because Mahamaya puts him into all the illusions. He cannot understand, he cannot comprehend. The Mahamaya is the external potency and is controlled by Durga Devi. And then if you look, Prabhupada also says that when you are gradually forgetting Krishna, that action of Mahamaya means that Maya is acting upon you. So this is where is the bewilderment of the Jiva, where he cannot understand what is happening. And this is primarily because of these two that are acting upon the Jivas. Prabhupada gives a very nice analogy on Yogmaya and Mahamaya, and I'll read it. Prabhupada says, just like the land between the ocean and the land, there is a portion of a land which is sometimes merged within water, sometimes it is land. So a living entity's position is like that. He may be under the influence of Yogmaya, or he may be under the influence of Mahamaya. Prabhupada says, when he is under the influence of Mahamaya, that is his conditioned life. And then he says, when he's under the influence of Yogmaya, he is free. And great authorities, the last statement in this verse says that Bhishma, however, escapes this bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. And this statement, which says Yogmaya means the mercy of the Lord, which connects the devotee, is what is shown here, that Bhishma is above all this and he is able to escape this by the mercy of the Lord. So, this was the first shloka that we talked about on 119, that who is the original Narayan. We saw his forms. We saw how distinct the Lord is with the different qualities that he has. And then we also saw different energies that we talked about, and we saw how Jiva is struggling between the internal and the external potency of the Lord. Okay. Now, let's go through this. The next part is there is also a mention that this all is happening because of the forgetful condition of the soul. And Chaitanya Charitamrita talks about few of the shlokas, how to come out of this forgetful condition. I'm just going to read the purport, but the shlokas are there. So in Madhya Leela 21-23, it states that the forgetful conditioned soul is educated by Krishna through the Vedic literatures, the realized spiritual master, and the super soul. So all three are educating him to come out of this forgetful condition. Through these, he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is, and he can understand that Lord Krishna is the eternal master and the deliverer from the clutches of Maya. In this way, one can acquire real knowledge in the conditioned life and come to understand how to attain liberation. The next verse talks about the Vedic literature gives an information about the living entity's eternal relationship with Krishna, which is called Sambandh. The living entity understanding of this relationship and acting according is called Abhideya, and returning home back to Godhead is the ultimate goal of life, which is called Prayojan. So these two verses are talking about, yes, there is a soul who is forgetful, he's conditioned. How do I come out? These are the three ways that talks about. Let's quickly go through it on these three aspects, talking about there are three stages of spiritual advancement. So I will just read the black bold letters, which will put things into perspective correctly. So it says, Sri Krishna, whose service is to be attained, is the person with whom we have to have sambandh. Bhakti, devotional service, is the means to attain that. And prema, the love for Krishna, is the prayojan. So we're talking of sambandha gyan. That means what is our relationship? And here primarily we talk about 8 objects. We talk about Krishna. When we say we talk, that means this is the gyan that we take. So we talk about Krishna. We talk about his potency. Okay, that's the gyan that we want to know. We talk about the rasa tattva. We talk about jiva tattva. We talk about the living entities. We talk about his entanglement into the world, how to come out of that. And we talk about something called Achintya Bhedabhed Tattva. So Sambandha Gyan is talking about establishing the relationship. And this is nothing but a process. And that process is to know these 8 things that I talked about. The second is Abhideya, which talks about how do you achieve it? The only way to achieve is through the bhakti or a devotional service. So that's what is talking about Abhideya. And then it talks also about to execute your devotional service, knowing the 8 above elements. So if you know who Krishna is, what his Shakti is, then accordingly in the devotional service, you also talk about how do I act into that. And the last part is typically called the Prayojan. This is the ultimate goal. So we are working towards this ultimate goal, which is Prayojan. But to achieve this, the means is Bhakti, and you should have the Sambandh Gyan to come to that level. So these are the 3 things or stages of spiritual advancement that talks about if the conditioned soul is there, who's forgetful in nature, the way is The Vedas is going to tell you what needs to be done, but this is how you need to approach. And through the Sambandh Gyan, Abhideya, and Prayojan. So in Abhideya, we talk about scriptures and Vedas because that is the only means to achieve the Lord or Krishna. Because devotional service, where do you find the devotional service? It would be into the scriptures somewhere for sure. And the attainment of the prema is the ninth object that would be part of this spiritual advancement. So this is a stages of spiritual advancement that we should go through. And it also talks about, our acharyas. So for example, Srila Sanatan Goswami is the acharya for Sambandha Gyan. So we should read from Srila Sanatan Goswami's books if you have to really know those 8 objects that I talked about. Then to know how to execute a devotional service is Srila Rupa Goswami, who tells us how can you execute your service, your devotional service. And then Sri Raghunath Das Goswami talks about the ultimate goal. How do you reach to that ultimate goal? So these are the 3 acharyas that talked about, and there are specific deities that are responsible. So deity for Sambandh Gyan is Madan Mohan, then deity for Abhideya is Radha Govindaji, and Gopinath is the deity for Prayojan. Okay, so that was our first shloka. Let's quickly continue on to the next one. So let me go to the next one, which is 1.9.19. So it says, Asyanubhavam Bhagwan Veda Guhyatam Shiva Deva Rishi Narad Sakshat Bhagwan Kapila Nrupa. So it says, O King, Lord Shiva, Narad, the sage amongst the demigods, Kapila, the incarnation of the Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through the direct contact. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Pure devotees of the Lord are Buddhas, or persons who know the glories of the Lord in different transcendental loving service. As the Lord has innumerable expansions of his plenary form, there are innumerable pure devotees of the Lord who are engaged in the exchange of the service of different humors. Ordinarily, there are 12 great devotees of the Lord, namely Brahma, Narad, Shiv, Kumar, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Bhishma, Janak, Sukhdev Goswami, Bali Maharaj, and Yamraj. Bhishma Dev, although one of them has mentioned only 3 names of the 12 who knows the glories of the Lord. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the great acharyas in this modern age, explains that Anubhav, or the glories of the Lord, is first appreciated by the devotees in ecstasy, manifesting the symptoms of perspiring, trembling, weeping, bodily eruptions, etc., which are further enhanced by steady understanding of the glories of the Lord. Such different understandings of the bhavas are exchanged between Yashoda and the Lord, binding the Lord by ropes, and the chariot driven by the Lord in exchange of the love with Krishna. These glories of the Lord are exhibited in his being subordinated before his devotees. And that is another feature of the glories of the Lord. Sukhdev Goswami and Kumaras, although situated in the transcendental position, became converted by another feature of the bhav and turned into pure devotees of the Lord. Tribulations imposed upon the devotees of the Lord constitute another exchange of the transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotees into material troubles means delivering him from the illusory material relations. The material relations are based on the reciprocation of the material enjoyment, which depends mainly on the material resources. Therefore, when the material resources are withdrawn, the devotee is 10% attracted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Thus, the Lord snatches the falling soul from the mire of material existence. Tribulations offered by the Lord to his devotees are different from tribulations resulting from the vicious action. all these glories of the Lord are specifically known to be great Mahajans, are specially known to the great Mahajans like Brahma, Shiva, Narad, Kapil, Kumar, and Bhishma, as mentioned above. And one is able to grasp it by their grace. Okay, so here Prabhupada is trying to tell us that there are two things that are coming, Bhava and Anubhav, that talks about the glories of the Lord. I have covered these sections roughly in some other shlokas because others were also talking about. So we have to, I have a shloka which talks about bhakti and we'll cover them there. But one of things that Prabhupada says is the tribulations. That means the Lord puts the devotees into a trouble only for a reason that he can come out from that material world, that bewilderment that we saw. So what he does, he typically takes away all the material resources from you, and then you are not left out with anything. So he does this mainly only for you to come to that transcendental platform. And this is one of the bhavas that Srila Prabhupada is talking about. I'll cover the next verse after this, and then we'll go to the slides, and then we have some more things that would be covered automatically into the others.
Prabhu, what exactly is vicious action?
Can I go back? Just hold. Which line? Okay. I set it somewhere. So
see the last sentence. His devotee is different from the tribulations resulting from the vicious action.
Tribulation offered to the Lord and his devotees are different from. Okay, so here, okay, that's a good point that you mentioned. So typically, what happens is there are two aspects of this. One aspect is a materialistic person. When he gets a problem in his life, it is because of his karmas or his actions that he is responsible for. When here Prabhupada mentions that tribulations offered is different for his devotees, means there are two sets. One is a devotee getting a problem, which is under a direct supervision of the Lord, and one is a materialistic person who is getting the results based on his own actions. So here Prabhupada says this tribulation, which is very specifically mentioned, is not from the karmic reaction. It is just because he wants his devotee to come out very quickly. He does that kind of a problem to gives problem to his devotees, and that's the difference. A materialistic person is getting because of his karmas. Here it is more of a problem that is directly supervised and given by the Lord himself. Okay, that's the difference.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the other one. The next shloka is 1920. Let me check in my, okay, till 21 I have to go. Okay, so then here it says, Yam manase matulyam priyam mitra suhratamam akaro savicham dutam sohradat sarathim. Translation. O king, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna, although acting as cousin, brother, friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc. of the Pandavas, was still the supreme personality of Godhead. Out of his causeless mercy and favor upon his unalloyed devotees, he performs all kinds of services. But that does not mean that he has changed his position as absolute person. To think of him as an ordinary man is the grossest type of ignorance. We will see in the next shloka, I'm not doing a full coverage here, but it talks about how the Lord reciprocates. And with the Lord, even reciprocating with us, he really doesn't, change his position. Okay. So we saw that internal potency of the Lord is there. He manifests in various forms. He also comes in as an external potency, and he's now interacting with his devotees in all these forms that are mentioned. But when he does this, he doesn't change his position. He still remains the absolute person. Okay. So we'll read this and then we'll go to the PowerPoint slides that we have. Okay. Sarvatmanah samdrosho hridva. Okay, it's a difficult. Hridva yasyana hankrate tatkritam mati vaishyam vaishmayam niravadhyasya na kvachet. Translation: being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from the material, inebriety. He is equibalanced, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because he is absolute, there's nothing different from him. He is Kaivalya. There is nothing except himself. Everything and everyone is the manifestation of his energy. We saw that. And thus he is present everywhere by his energy, being non-different from it. The sun is identified with very inch of the sun rays and every molecular particle of the rays. Similarly, the Lord is distributed by his different energies. He is Paramatma or super soul present in everyone as a supreme guidance, and therefore he is already the chariot driver and the counsel of all living beings. When he therefore exhibits himself as chariot driver of Arjuna, there is no change in his exalted position. This is what we were reading before also. It is the power of the devotional service only that demonstrates him as the chariot driver or the messenger. Since he has nothing to do with the marginal conception of life, because he is absolute spiritual identity, there is for him no superior or inferior action. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he has no false ego. And so he does not identify himself with anything different from him. The material conception of the ego is equibalanced in him. He does not feel, therefore, inferior by becoming a chariot driver or of his pure devotees. This is the glory of the pure devotee, that only he can, it is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. So let's go back to the presentation, and we will look at some of the qualities of the Lord that are mentioned in this particular shloka, which is 21. And we will also see there was a statement mentioned Paramatma, right? And we would see what is a super soul and a soul. It's quite important for us to understand the difference between a super soul and the soul. So let's look at the qualities of the Lord. So it is mentioned that he is absolute, nothing is different from him. We also saw all the energies of the Lord and some of the references which says that everything, whether it is material or spiritual, comes from the expansion of the Lord himself. So it is his energies that are working. So everything manifests from his energy. We also saw here that he also resides as Paramatma or super soul in every heart, and we'll see this in a moment. And then we also talked about his identity, that he's spiritual. He has nothing to do with the material conception of life. Why? Because his entire body is made of Sat, Chit, and Anand. This is what he's made. We have a material body, but the Lord doesn't have. He has a spiritual identity, and that is Sat, Chit, and Anand. It also talks about a quality that he doesn't have false ego, right? He does not differentiate. So when we are in the material world, we do a lot of differentiations. But if you look at the Lord, if everything is his property, everything is his proprietorship, everything is created by him, he doesn't have any differentiation because it belongs to him, as simple as this. And hence he doesn't have any false ego there. And he's quite affectionate. And we will see now in the last shloka, where Prabhupada talks about how affectionate the Lord is, because this whole episode is there where Bhishma Dev is lying on the arrows and Krishna is in front of him, and that's one of the qualities that he's quite affectionate. And we'll see more details into this in the later slides. Okay, so a couple of things that we really want to understand is, in the shloka talks about the Lord is present as a super soul in the heart. So it's very important for us to understand the differentiation and how a soul and a super soul is related. So we'll go through the soul section first, and then we'll go to the super soul. So soul is nothing but Jivatma, also situated in the heart. And then the soul is called as Anu Atma, or the minute soul. Soul is always referred to as Anu, that means small, okay, very minute. Now, a common living being or a soul can be all pervading within his own limited body. So this is a characteristics of a soul, that it cannot be all pervading everywhere. The soul is limited to the body only. Okay. Now, the key differentiation with the soul is the Jivatma is eating the fruit of his activities. So in the Upanishads, it is mentioned as an example that a soul and super soul are two birds which are sitting on the tree, and the soul is nothing but Jivatma is eating the fruit of his activities, and we will see super soul is just watching the soul. So soul, when you talk about the soul, it is just a Jivatma who is actually doing the karma, and he is eating the fruit of his activities. The most important part here is that the soul or the living entity forgets everything of his past life after changing the body. So we don't remember who we were in the previous life. And this is what it is saying, that the living entity forgets everything what is there as past when he changes the body. And the most important part is the jiva or the soul has the tendency to fall under the clutches of illusory maya. And this is what we are seeing from the first shloka. He's struggling between the internal and the external potency. Why? Because he's a soul, as simple as this. And various potencies that are acting over the jiva. But the soul has the tendency to fall into the clutches of maya. And the soul has only one thing to do, is to desire. We as Jivatmas, we just do one thing, we just desire. Okay. Now let's look at the super soul or the Paramatma. And again, situated in the heart again. And now he is called Vibhu, right? He is the supreme. So soul is referred to as Anu, very minute, but the Paramatma or the super soul is referred to as Vibhu, which is a supreme soul. And the difference between the soul and the super soul is that supreme living being is all pervading in all space and time. You remember the first slide that we saw where we had three forms of Vishnu? The Paramatma is that form, that one form, which is the last form of the Vishnu. He goes and is residing in every atom. This is what it means, that the supreme being is all pervading in all space and time, whereas the soul is only limited to his body. The other part is Jivas is eating the fruit of his activities, but Paramatma, he sees and he witnesses what the soul is doing. Okay. And the other part is the super soul being situated in everyone's heart can witness everyone's activities. So the Paramatma who's there, he watches everything that we do. He's just watching, he's witnessing. Even if you are eating your fruit of your activities, he's watching. You are doing something, he's watching. So he is watching that and then can witness everyone's activities in past, present, and future. This is what is the difference between a soul and a super soul. Soul forgets everything, but a super soul never forgets. He knows what was there in the past, he knows what was there in the future, he knows what is there in the present as well. And the super soul, a key difference that Prabhupada writes, that the super soul never falls under the clutches of illusory Maya because he is Paramatma. We fall as living entity into the clutches of Maya, but the super soul never ever falls into it. And the last difference is, if the soul desires, then there is someone who should be an approving authority to say, yes, you can have it. And that is done by the super soul or the Paramatma. So he approves this. So this is one of the key differences between the soul and the super soul. And we need to understand the aspect of where do we stand and where the Paramatma is, and what is the difference between a soul and a super soul. Okay, very important, and this is the key differentiation. He helps us in understanding better about him, and he guides us from within to attain him. All the guidance that we receive from within to reach to him is nothing but the Paramatma guiding us. That's the responsibility of the super soul, to take us back to him, but he typically guides us on going about and how to attain him. He gives us that knowledge. Okay, that's the responsibility of the super soul. Okay, so let's look at 22. I think I read 22 as well here. Oh, it's 21 now. Okay, so here we will talk about his position also. We saw the Paramatma and the super soul that is present, and we also saw that he is some of the qualities, like he is spiritual, he is absolute. Okay, he, all the energies is his. We saw that, and then we will also see now later on that once he does everything, um, he is even quite affectionate to his devotees, and we'll cover this in the next section. So let's go to the 22 now, 1.22, and then we'll go to these slides again. Okay. It says here, Tathapi ekanta bhakteshu pasya bhupanukampitam yan me asum okay, yam me asum stayajataha sakshat Krishna darshanamagataha. Translation: yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord, Absolute Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, although equal to everyone, is still more inclined to his unflinching devotee who is completely surrendered and knows no one else as proprietor and master. Having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's proprietor, friend, master, and master is the natural condition of the eternal life. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The opposite tendency is the cause of fall down. The living entity has the tendency of the fall down by the dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over the material world. This is Jivatma struggling with, which has Mahamaya over him. The root cause of all the troubles is there in the false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord. One must draw towards the Lord in all the circumstances. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhishmaji is due to his being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. Arjuna had some bodily relation with Krishna because the Lord happened to be his maternal cousin, but Bhishma had no bodily relation. Therefore, the cause of the attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet, because the relation of the body is never very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as the son of Nanda Maharaj Nanda, the son of Yashoda, or the lover of Radharani. This affinity of bodily relation with the Lord is another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. Bhishma Dev is conscious of his sweetness of transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijay Sakhe, Partha Sakhe, etc. Exactly like Nanda Nandana or Yashodananda. The best way to establish our relation in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish the relationship directly. There must be a medium which is transparent, competent to lead us to the right path. Let's look at presentation. So, couple of things where we will see, is the Lord really partial? Because Lord talks about partiality in this. We talk about Bhishma's relation with Krishna. What is that relationship? And here we will also see is bodily relation that really matters, because we read Bhishma was only related to the Lord. He did not had any bodily relationship as Arjuna had or as others had. So let's look into those. Now, look into the partiality of the Lord, which appears to us as the Lord is partial. So here, if you see, if you look at the living entities and the devotees, the Lord says, I'm equal to both. He says, I'm equal to the living entity, I'm equal to the devotees. He says, I'm not partial. That means he's saying, I'm not partial to the living entities, nor I'm partial to the devotees. And then he also says that I have no friends, no enemies, and I don't envy anyone. So these three are same for the living entities and the devotees. But there is one specific thing that stands very much predominant, is the devotional service. And this is where you will see that the Lord appears to be partial to the devotees. The only difference between the living entity and the devotees is this devotional service, okay, that is rendered to him. Prabhupada rightly writes that devotees are always engaged in Krishna consciousness. So when you see that the Lord is partial, it's not because of the partiality, but just because they are doing a devotional service and they are into Krishna consciousness always. The second Prabhupada writes is this inclination. So this partiality, Prabhupada writes, is an inclination, is natural, because I am reciprocating with the Lord. And he says this inclination is natural and not determination. This is reciprocal. So that means when I perform devotional service or do bhakti towards the Lord, it is the Lord that he is reciprocating with me. So it is reciprocal. And Prabhupada says that the Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. It is the part of the spiritual world where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. So Prabhupada is making it very clear. Things that appear to you as partial is not partial, it is natural, it is reciprocal. And the Lord also says that it is on the platform of not under the law of karma, but it is at the transcendental platform. And then the Lord and Prabhupada lastly says that this is Lord's special mercy to the devotees. And this is where we see that the Lord appears to be partial to us. But this is not the partiality, but this is all the reasons that Prabhupada says, where you see that Krishna is looking partial towards the devotees. 9.29 of Bhagavad Gita says the same. Samoham sarvabhuteshu na me do asti na priyaha. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. So it says, I envy no one, nor I am partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So this partiality is nothing but a devotional service and the reciprocation and the mercy of the Lord, which appears to the others as partial. But this is what it is. Okay. Now, Bhishma Dev, if you look at, now let's look at the bodily relation. Does the bodily relation really matter? Because this shloka also talks about Bhishma Dev's relation to Krishna. So here it says the relation of the body is very pleasing and natural. Okay. The Lord is more pleased when addressed as son of Nanda Maharaj, son of Yashoda, and the lover of Radharani. So the Lord is also pleased when you call him with the bodily relation. Okay, he's happy about it. And then Prabhupada writes that this is also another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. So even when I call the Lord as son of Nanda Maharaj or son of Yashoda Maya, he is pleased, and this is also one way of reciprocation. Now Bhishma Dev also in this shloka, Prabhupada says, likes to address the Lord as Vijay Sakhe, Partha Sakhe, etc., with his sweet transcendental humor. Okay, so Bhishma Dev also is reciprocating with the Lord in terms of the bodily relation. He's calling the Lord with the names, and he's reciprocating with the Lord by calling him differently. Arjuna also had a relationship with the Lord. However, Bhishma had no such bodily relationship. So now the question comes is, what was all the attraction about? Prabhupada writes, the cause of the attraction is due to the intimate relationship of the soul. So yes, the Lord gets pleased when you call him or you reciprocate with him in terms of the bodily relation. But here Prabhupada writes that Bhishma Dev lying and the Lord being present there until he leaves is nothing but an intimate relation of the soul. Okay, and then further he writes, the appearance of the Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhishma Dev is due to his being an unflinching devotee of the Lord. So the relation is with the soul, and he has an unflinching love, or he's an unflinching devotee of the Lord. This is why the Lord is still there with Bhishma Dev till the end. And Prabhupada also writes that Bhishma Dev was completely surrendered. He knew that the only protector, friend, and master is Sri Krishna. So he had that knowledge that it is only the Sri Krishna who will protect him. He also knew that the Lord was there because of the unflinching devotee. He was very dear to the Lord. And then the relationship was not at the bodily level, but also at the soul level. This is what the shloka means. Okay. So now on the 23, so we did 22, we will cover 23 and 24, and some part of 19 also would be covered. And I think 20 also is coming somewhere down the line. Let me go to the 23 now. And let's see what does this shloka talk about. Okay. Bhaktya veshamano yasmin vacha yannama kirtayan tajan kalevaram yogi muchyate kama karma bhi. The personality of God who appears in the mind of a devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting of the holy name, releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of quitting his material body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here it is, yoga means concentration of mind detached from all the other subject matters, and actually such concentration is samadhi. or 100% engagement in the service of the Lord. And one who concentrates his attention in that manner is called a yogi. Such a yogi, devotee of the Lord, engages himself 24 hours daily in the service of the Lord. So that is the whole attention. So that the whole attention is engrossed with the thoughts of the Lord in ninefold devotional service, namely hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, praying, becoming voluntary servant, chanting, carrying out the orders, establishing a friendly relationship, or offering all that one may possess in the service of the Lord. By such practice of yoga or linking up in the service of the Lord, one is recognized by the Lord himself, as it is explained in Bhagavad Gita concerning the highest perfectional stage of samadhi. The Lord calls such a rare devotee the best amongst all the yogis. Such a perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord with the perfect sense of consciousness, and thus by chanting his holy name before quitting the body, the yogi is at once transformed by the internal energy of the Lord to one of the eternal planets where there is no question of material life and its concomitant factors. Concomitant factors. Okay. In material existence, a living being has to endure the material conditions of threefold miseries, life after life, according to his fruitive work. Such material life is produced by material desires only. Devotional service to the Lord does not kill the natural desire of the living entity, but they are applied in the right cause of the devotional service. So, yeah, this qualifies the desire to be transferred to the spiritual sky. General Bhishma Dev is referring to a particular type of yoga called Bhakti Yoga, and he was fortunate enough to have the Lord directly in his presence before he quitted his material body. Therefore, he desired that the Lord stays before his view in the following verses. So this is 23. Let's go on back to this. So here we are talking about things like yoga. Prabhupada talks about samadhi. Prabhupada talks about bhakti yoga. And there is also something that Prabhupada says there is a way to remember the Lord always. So let's go into starting from how to remember Krishna, and then we will also see what needs to be done to remember Krishna. So first thing is, here it is mentioned, Prabhupada mentions yoga. Prabhupada says the actual yoga is to connect to the Supreme. That means yoga doesn't mean any kind of meditation that you close your eyes and sit in a particular position for a long time. No, yoga, Prabhupada, means you have to connect to the Supreme. Now, to remember Krishna, you need a process. So this means that's a process that you need to do to remember Krishna, and it only comes through the practice that you do. Once you follow the process, yoga means to connect, follow the process. Only by practice, when you do practice day in and out, you will be able to remember him. And Bhagavad Gita talks about these three shlokas that talks about the process, the practice, and how to remember him. So let's look at 8.7, and I'll read the purport. Prabhupada says, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. At the same time, carry out your prescribed duties of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me. So here we are talking about what we need to do so that we can ultimately remember him. So it is a process. So the process is always think about me, dedicate all your activities onto me, your mind and intelligence should be fixed on me, then only you should be able to reach me. This is what it says. And this requires a practice. It's not that at the end of your lifetime, if someone is not doing bhakti, you will be able to immediately do this. No, you have to day in and out practice. This is why it's a process. This is why only by practice this comes in. Next, in 8.6, it is said, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So unless you are practicing and practicing and practicing, you cannot come to this level. You can not come to this level of thinking where you want to go or what you want to achieve. And then Prabhupada says in 8.5, and whoever at the end of the life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attain my nature. Of this, there is no doubt.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, are you speaking? We are not able to hear you.
Okay. What is a bhakti yoga? So let's look at the bhakti yoga ladder. It's I won't say it's a bhakti yoga ladder. It is called bhakti yoga process, but it is faster than the yoga ladder. And I'll tell you what is that traditional yoga ladder is. So here, this is the process. This is how you grow. I'm not talking about an animal life. This is the least form that we have. But what typically happens is you have, if you are lucky, and this is what Prabhupada writes in so many books, that if you are lucky, you will get an association of a devotee somewhere. You will have a little faith, but then with that little faith, you will things come.
Is everyone able to hear Prabhuji? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, I'm not able to hear. Sorry. Maybe my problem somewhere.
So, okay. Subal Prabhu, yeah, let me know. I mean, you want to continue? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Prabhu, please continue.
Okay. So, once you have the association of the devotees, you increase your faith, then you do a sadhana bhakti. And one point is there, which is Sankhya Yoga to Ashtang Yoga, is already covered into this sadhana bhakti. I'll share one more slide after this, so we'll be clear what we are talking about. But then once you do a sadhana bhakti, then you move to another level up, which says bhav bhakti. And this is where the sprout of prema bhakti gets seeded into you. And if you remember in one of the shlokas that we read, it talked about the anubhav. And these are the 9 symptoms that manifest in one's behavior when the bhav bhakti sprouts. Forgiveness, that means a person who is into bhav bhakti, you see all these nine symptoms in him. Forgiveness, concern that the time should not be wasted, detachment, absence of false prestige, hope, eagerness, a taste of chanting of the holy name of the Lord, attachment to the description of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and affection for those places where the Lord resides. So these are 9 qualities or anubhavs that when you are in Bhav Bhakti, a devotee experiences. This is actually in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, I think, chapter 22, that talks about all of these qualities. And when you are in Bhav Bhakti, you have reached to this stage, very nice feeling of possessiveness comes in. That means a devotee is very possessive about his relationship with the Lord. And he says that there is no one else apart from the Lord as object of love. And that's the possessiveness that you see in the Bhav Bhakti in here. Okay. And now, after he finishes this Bhava Bhakti, he reaches to the ultimate level, which is Prema Bhakti. So now, this is typically Bhakti ladder. This is not the traditional yoga ladder. All the devotees who are in Krishna consciousness theoretically knows that this is Krishna is the supreme. And we don't follow the traditional way of going through the yoga ladder, but we follow this bhakti yoga as a process which involves sadhan bhakti, bhav bhakti, and the prema bhakti. And this is the ladder, and this is what happens. Just quickly go through the traditional yoga ladder for us to understand. This is the typical yoga ladder that is part of the initial chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So here it goes from Sakam Karma to Nishkam Karma to Gyan Yoga to Ashtang Yoga, and then you can reach something called a Bhakti Yoga. So this is very cumbersome. If you look at the details of each of the yoga ladder that we have, it's very difficult. It takes a long time to reach to this level of Bhakti Yoga. This is a faster way of achieving this. This is a longer way of achieving this. And there are a lot of pitfalls in between. So for example, if I am doing a Ashtang Yoga, for example, for some reason, I may also, there is a pitfall that I may go into things like siddhis, or I may adapt a localized form of the Lord. I may never reach the Bhakti Yoga. It may happen that I may get stick to a certain siddhi, and I can lose the full where I want to reach. Similarly, when you are into Gyan Yoga, you are reading a lot of books and theories and stuff and all that stuff. It may happen that you may fall into a place where you go into a Nirakar form and say, okay, Nirakar form is the only form that I'm interested in. So there are a lot of pitfalls in here which may hinder you from reaching to this particular Bhakti Yoga. So we always do the Bhakti Yoga as mentioned in here, which is faster than your traditional yoga ladder. Okay. Last shloka, we have 5 minutes and should be able to wrap this very quickly. So 24th verse is very nice. Let's read that. Okay, my internet is slow. Okay, 24 comes in here. Sadeva Devo Bhagwan sa Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavadidam Hinomyaham Prasanna Hasaruno Lochanan Ambujo Dhyana Partha Chaturbhujaha. Translation: May my Lord, who is four-handed, whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at the moment when I quit this material body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bhishma Dev knew well that the Lord Krishna is the original Narayan. His worshipable deity was four-handed. His worshipable deity was four-handed Narayan, but he knew that the four-handed Narayan is plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Indirectly, he desired Lord Sri Krishna to manifest himself in a four-handed feature of Narayan. A Vaishnava is always humble in his behavior. Although it was 10% certain that Bhishma Dev was approaching Vaikuntha Dham just after leaving his material body, still as humble Vaishnava, he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord. For after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. A Vaishnava is not very puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotees entrance into his abode. Here, Bhishma Dev says, as long as I do not quit this body, this means that the great general would quit his body by his own will. He was not being forced by the laws of nature. He was so powerful that he would stay in the body as long as he desired. He got the benediction from his father. He desired that the Lord stay from him in his four-handed Narayan feature so that he might concentrate upon him and thus be entranced in that meditation. Then he might be sanctified with thinking of the Lord. Thus, he did not mind wherever he might go. A pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to the kingdom of the Lord. He entirely depends on the will of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in the rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, regardless. Bhishma Dev wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in the thinking of the Lord and that he passes away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. So this is what the Lord says, the highest ambition of a pure devotee. Let's look at what is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. And we will also see how much the Lord loves his devotee and to what level he reciprocates. So this is very nice, where Prabhupada says what should be the highest ambition of the pure devotee. So first is Bhishma Dev lying on the bed. His highest ambition was he wanted the association of the Lord till he leaves the body. So the highest ambition of the pure devotee also should be that to have the association of the Lord till the end. And this is what Bhishma Dev really wants. The second is here, the object of the meditation. When Bhishma Dev is dying now, he is saying, let the object of meditation be the Lord's lotus-like face. He says, let the meditation of the object be the red eyes, which are like the morning sun. And let the object of the meditation be the beautifully decorated face of the Lord, form of the Lord. And then he also desires that he wants to do a constant meditation, not by closing his eyes, but constantly looking at the Lord with the open eyes. So here it is also talking about fixing the mind. So the object of meditation is there, fixing the mind is there, that he should be able to fix his mind onto the Lord with the open eyes. And he really wanted to see the four-handed form of the Lord, because he knew that he is headed to the Vaikuntha Dham. So he really wanted to see the Lord, that when the Lord leaves, he should see him in his four-handed form, because he was heading to the Vaikuntha Dham. So that should be the highest ambition of a pure devotee, a constant association, an object of meditation. We should fix our minds and we should know where we want to head. Bhishma Dev was very clear that he wanted to go to Vaikuntha Dham, seeing the four-handed form of the Lord. Okay, this was also the ambition of Bhishma Dev. Now let's see the last slide, which talks about how much the Lord loves his devotee, right? And these are few of the reasons which says that how much the Lord loves his devotee. Krishna is there present next to Bhishma Dev on his dead bed. Now, few of the lectures I have heard that these are the reasons. One says how much the Lord loves his devotee is, one is the causeless mercy. Because of the causeless mercy, he appears in this material world. So the glory of the Lord is more when he appears into this material world. He shows affection to his devotees by coming to this material world. And more glorious is when he establishes a relation with the Lord, with the devotees. So the relationship between the Lord and a devotee is very sweet and transcendental. So more glorious is he appears. More than that is when he establishes a relationship. More glorious is when he reciprocates. So Lord is directly taking pleasures from his devotees. Okay, so that's quite important. When he does the reciprocation, he's also taking orders from the Lord. Arjuna is directing the Lord in the battlefield to drive his chariot, right? So he's reciprocating with the Lord, and same way the Bhishma Dev also is reciprocating with the Lord in this situation. And more glorious is when the Lord renders the service to his devotees. So Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to his devotees. And also the Lord provides the best of the comforts to his friends or his devotees. Okay, so here, this is how much he loves his devotees, that he, with his causeless mercy, he comes to this material world, he establishes a relationship with everyone, he does a lot of reciprocation, he takes orders from him, and he wants to serve his devotees. This is how much he loves the Lord, the devotees. Okay, and then it also says that the Lord acts as cousin, brother, friend, well-wisher, messenger, benefactor, etc., but does not mean that he has changed his position as absolute person. To think of him as an ordinary man is the grossest type of ignorance. So this is what Bhishma Dev is. He has a desire, he has an ambition, he wants to die, but with the Lord in front of him. But similarly, with that desire, the Lord is also reciprocating in the same way, showing his mercy, establishing a relationship, taking orders, and rendering service to his devotees. And this is what is mentioned in the last shloka, which is 1924. So I think I'm done here on the slides that I have presented, and I'm open for any question. I think we just took 5 minutes over and above, but yeah, thank you so much.
Prabhu, Partha Sakha is the friend of Arjun. What is Vijay Sakha?
It's another name of the Lord, which I think represents just saying the victory. I mean, Vijay Sakha means one who provided the victory. So in that sense, it says Vijay Sakha.
Prabhuji, thank you very much. Fantastic class. You had gave a very detailed explanation. Prabhuji, the first slide, can you show it again?
Yeah.
You had shown a seesaw wherein the devotional service was actually pulling down the seesaw on one side.
Okay. So was it this one or Yogmaya? This one?
No, not the Yogmaya, the seesaw.
The seesaw. Okay. Here.
Prabhu, you'll need to reshare the screen again.
Oh, sorry. I was doing it with me only. Sorry. Screen. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, this one. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Actually, this is really very detailed, kind of explanation which gives a clear idea. Because a lot of people, they still think because Krishna is partial to the devotees, they think that how can he say he is not partial. So this is a really nice explanation which you have given.
Yeah, and this I found in some of the lectures of Prabhupada. He specifically says that this all is reciprocal. It's a natural inclination. It's the Lord's mercy that is coming upon, and this is why we feel it is partial. Otherwise, it is not.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, when we started Bhagavatam, in the first lecture itself, Mr. Ajay told us that the objective of the Bhagavatam is to have these three things, that is relationship, path, and purpose. That is what you told us, Sambandh, Abhidhe, and Prayojan.
Yes. This one, yeah.
So can you mute? Can we have your darshan?
Oh, sorry. Absolute sorry. Okay, so give me the sorry. I was absolutely
I was
not aware that my camera is not there.
I
But
actually I had written one message.
can you see me? Okay, okay, wait. So I think, yeah, sorry, absolutely sorry. I could not, I thought my camera is on. Sorry. I did not realize that it is off.
I wrote a message to you on WhatsApp, but I think you
Oh,
could.
is it? I did not look at that
I
message.
didn't want to disturb you during the lecture, so I didn't speak about it.
Okay.
But excellent, fantastic lecture, Prabhuji. Excellent lecture. Gave a lot of insight into these deeper concepts and in a much graphical manner, which will help everybody understand.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic lecture. Thank you so much. Anybody, any question? You will get him back only 5-6 weeks later. So grab as much as possible from him.
Oh, the Krishna Prabhu is putting his hand. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Just a point. Can we get the presentation also on WhatsApp or email or something?
Yeah, Prabhu.
Prabhu, yeah, we can always get that. But what I'm also doing is I'm recording these lectures and I intend to upload that in YouTube. But I think somehow there was some problem in my Zoom, because of which Zoom got restarted, and I think I may have missed the recording. I don't know, but whatever has been recorded, I'll upload it. Prabhu, if you can share, that will be nice.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, the Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, wonderful lecture with so many details, and I was just carried away with so many important points you have mentioned, especially about the bhakti yoga ladder, and then connecting with bhakti. That was wonderful and makes sense. Prabhupada always used to mention that if you like it is if you are doing the bhakti yoga, you are in an elevator directly to the top floor, rather than going through from the lower sections and progressing ahead. It was really very nice. Even the earlier what you mentioned about the hierarchy, where how does the tree basically starting from the Krishna to Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and all that very nicely explained, and it was really very good. Definitely, would like to have the presentation so that this will help us, and while explaining it to the new devotees or devotees who are having some differences or having some difficulty in understanding, this definitely will help. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for a wonderful class, and looking forward to the presentation. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was very, very detailed and very informative.
Thank you, Prabhu. All of you. Hare Krishna.
One query, I don't know if I missed something. Prabhuji, when you showed that chart of all the
incarnations.
So how did I don't know if I didn't notice Sri Ram.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Let me reshare my screen. Sec. Just sharing the screen back. Okay. So let me see if where is my share screen. Just hold on. It says share. Hold. Let me go to the presentation mode. And let me zoom in. Okay. So there is one detail which I actually okay. So okay, I will tell you where the Lord Rama is. Okay, now what I have see these four first forms, which is Vasudev, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and the second form, I did not speak much. I knew very little about this, but I know this is Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna here on the top, these four. And then down, I somewhere also saw that this four is also representation of something else. So Ram is somewhere here on this layer.
Okay.
I do not put this because, I didn't knew much of the details, but I saw somewhere someone was explaining, because this is too in depth on, what forms and stuff, but it is somewhere here at this layer for sure.
Thank you.
Somewhere. I did not put it deliberately because I myself had some clarity needed, because it is too technical to go into individuals, but it is somewhere here for sure.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Any other question? Doesn't look like.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu,
Yes,
it was
Mataji.
fantastic presentation and fantastic explanation. So thank you so much. It was really, really nice.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. This is all Prabhupada, we are so fortunate that we have this part, all this details exposed. Imagine half of the people first don't know what is it. And at least we are lucky that we know the details to this level. No one can go and show us this kind of details as Prabhupada and all our acharyas have taught. So, and this is why bhakti is very rare. This is what it says, that bhakti is rare. So now we understand why it is so rare. And thanks to all our acharyas and our gurus that we have received that such level of details in a topic. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to even understand a small line or a word from this.
Yes.
Yes, Uddhav Krishna Prabhu.
At the same time, if you go into the intricacies, if you go into details, if you want to get the knowledge, at the end of it, they made it so simple. They just mentioned that just do chanting and be happy.
Correct.
The crux of everything is that you don't have to be logically, because logic doesn't work. In devotion service, logic doesn't work in any way. So what you have to do is just be submissive, is follow the instructions of your guru, chant.
Yes.
That's the only way. All the rest of the processes, they will fall in the places.
Exactly, and this is what that yoga ladder talks about, bhakti yoga. In Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it so simple that just chant the name of the Lord. And I don't know if you have noticed this, but one of the sections here, which is the sadhana bhakti, when you do everything that is a typical yoga ladder, which is from Sakam Karm till Ashtang Yoga, it is already covered in the sadhana bhakti. You don't have to do it actually.
True, very true.
Yeah. Okay. I think we are good to close. It just took more time, 15 minutes more than what we had.
Many thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the wonderful class. So we will close the session for today. Hare Krishna. So
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Krishna Swarupa Prabhu, for the enlightening class. Really happy to have you today. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Thank you. I'm ending the session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.